the EHA die. Today we're going to talk about defective EHA valves. And so I've had some videos about how to adjust the EHA or the electrohydraulic actuator, but today we're going to talk about how these electrohydraulic actuators fail and the signs that they leave you with before they go out all the way. And so we're going to talk about some notable examples of when these things go. So the first notable example of a dying EHA is a leak when the engine is running, and this can be tipped off by the slight smell of gas around your air cleaner. So the KE fuel system should never smell like gas. You should never go after you shut the car down and smell gas. If you smell gas, it means that there's a problem. The system should be 100% fuel tight. But very often when the smell of gas is present, I go to this little tiny hole in the casing of the EHA, and as you can tell, there's like some staining around the hole. Now, what is this staining, you might ask? Well, this staining is actually a sign of a fuel leak, because when EHAs start to go bad, they leak here or in these three little holes. And what does that mean? It means you've got to replace it. Now, I've heard of some people taking the EHA off and putting some kind of sealant in the hole and some kind of sealant in these three little holes. Well, sure, yeah. I mean, if I were in a bad situation and I needed to get somewhere and I didn't want a leaking EHA, believe me, I would do it. But when you're doing this, you're not actually fixing a leak, because it means that the casing, the plastic casing around the solenoid valve is disintegrating, and that fuel is leaking out of the solenoid valve through the area of the plastic casing and eventually reaching daylight. So this is a sign of some kind of internal leak instead. Now, does it mean that the EHA won't function properly? Well, we can say that it will eventually get to that point. One of my customers who has a 420 SEL recently got to this point with his EHA, where his valve actually shut down the car at idle, and it was leaking. It was leaking a lot of gas. It wasn't just wetness. It was like drip, drip, drip. Now, if you see anything, it's time to replace it. Again, this should be 100% dry. But if you see anything, you replace it. He was getting more than a drip, drip, drip. He was actually getting like almost a little bit of a aggressive leak out of his, and so this may have been an indication that something even worse was wrong with the valve. Now, another thing that EHA valves do when they start to go bad is they get blocked. Now, where does the blockage occur? The blockage occurs in this little passage. So this passage with the EHA unplugged should be clear. You should have, and by the way, this is the heart of the control pressure versus working pressure adjustment. Okay, this is where the control pressure meets the working pressure, and this is how you adjust the ratio between the two of them. One side you have control, one side you have working, and under here is the gate that divides, this little Allen screw. But the adjustment that I'm talking about can easily cause sorry, tired today. The adjustment that I'm talking about can easily cause sometimes a restriction here, but another thing that can cause a restriction, other than tampering with the screw without knowing what you're doing, is dirt getting into the little filter inside the working pressure side. So you need to pull it off and back flush it and see if there's any rust or other debris in there, because if there is, then your car will absolutely not run, and it is an alternative to buying a new EHA. People do not like to buy EHAs, I've noticed. Why? Well, they're expensive. They're like, depending on where you buy it from, you know, they're around $300, depending on price and market fluctuation, who sells it to you, but they're around $300. And if you get one from Mercedes, because Mercedes, I think, is vetting you know, the parts are the best stock. That's what they say they're doing. I don't know. You're going to pay their list price of like 400 and change, which I usually try to get these from Bosch, but occasionally we've gotten bad ones from Bosch. People just don't like to buy them. Well, too bad, you know. Now here are a couple of other scenarios where they like to act up, or where you may have an EHA that's acting up. If you get really jerky acceleration and the engine in the car is just, you know, losing power under heavy throttle, your EHA might be bad. If the engine will not rev past idle, your EHA might be bad. Starts and idle's good, but just will not achieve any speed higher than idle. If your engine is really lean and will not start easily, and you have to crank it and crank it and crank it for 4 or 5 seconds, your EHA might be lean or might be too bad. Now you have to verify things like fuel delivery and control pressure and working pressure and all that stuff beforehand. But under these scenarios, the EHA is worth investigating once you've ruled out other problems. Anyway, I hope you guys found this video useful. I'm trying to share Mercedes knowledge with you that you're not going to get in ordinary avenues or venues, and believe me, there's a lot of it. So please tap the bell for notifications, like, share, and subscribe. And if you found this video helpful, please tell us about your own EHA failure in the comments below so that you can use your knowledge to help other Mercedes owners. And remember, just because the part's expensive doesn't mean you can go and replace the car for $500 or $1,000 bucks. So just, you know, if it's leaking, replace it. See you guys later.